Hi, friends. Welcome to Digging Deep, a podcast brought to you by Motivo, where we unearth stories that bring us closer. I'm Rachel, joined by Dr. Carla, and together we are going to explore our shared experiences and what it means to be human.
We'll have conversations with clinicians, activists, and everyday heroes who share their wisdom. These discussions challenge our perspectives and ignite a spark for positive change. We'll explore love, loss, resilience, growth, and the power of human connection.
And we'll do so with humility, knowing that we are not the experts, but simply fellow explorers seeking to learn alongside you.
Digging Deep is more than a podcast. It's a community. Let's learn, grow, and support one another. So grab a cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and let's explore the heart of being human. Welcome to Digging Deep.
Hi, friends.
Hello, good to see you.
See you. I actually have tea today.
I have my pink drink.
You do?
Same
Oh,
in Starbucks.
I love it. How much do we love Starbucks?
I mean, they take all of my money, but
Same.
I do still love them. Just like children.
That's exactly right. What a great comparison. I don't know why, but I just feel like, my obsession. It is, for me, it's the cup. I think they have the most perfect cup.
I actually have never thought about the cups because, I get a cold drink, so I don't have the same cup. But I do often have to talk myself down from spending the $20 to $25 for their really glitzy, glamoury cups.
I keep buying them. I don't need them. And I don't need them. And I don't even use them. But I'm like, well, look at this one. It has tulips. It's spring.
Need it. Yes.
I need it. Oh, commercialism. Well, it's good to see you. I was going to say, I've been talking to some of my friends who watch the podcast. They're so sweet. They want to support me and all of that sort of stuff. And I've noticed that in all of their messages to me, they're always like, and then Carla said this really amazing thing. And then she said this, and then she said this. And they're always like, and then you made that funny comment, super funny. And then Dr. Carla said this. I'm like, all right, I hear what you're saying. She's got all the goods.
Well, first of all, I thank them for listening. And also that they're probably just used to your gems. They're just yes, you're funny. And we already know how much wisdom you have because you've shared it with them already.
I mean, you have gems. I have zingers, I think.
That's not true. That is not true. Well, watch. I'm going to tell you throughout this conversation.
Oh, you are?
Where?
Because I thrive on positive affirmation. So you can be like, wow, Rachel, it's so good.
Here we go. We're going to do it. And not just because, we're friends and because, we're connected. I'm just going to do it to show you that you have all this wisdom.
Okay. I love it. Thank you for affirming me the whole way through. We're going to talk about a song lyric today, which I think is kind of interesting. It's one of Leonard Cohen's songs that I hate to say this because he's got to be this amazing artist like Bowie that I know so much about. But I love the lyrics a little bit more than I like. The song is kind of deep voice, slow. I mean, it's beautiful to listen to, but it's not one of those ones that I'm gets me all excited and pumped up. It's more of this, I don't know, somber meditation. And I was listening to it the other day, and that one song that I'm sure many people will recognize, or the one lyric of the song, it's from his song Anthem. And it says, there's a crack in everything. And that is how the light gets in. And so I was just kind of reflecting on that and wanted to bring it for us to talk about today. And I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. So first of all, is this on your cooking playlist?
It is.
Okay.
But as a very recent addition to the cooking playlist.
Okay. Got it. All right. Well, this infamous cooking playlist we should talk about.
And we should post too, if Sean can find it. It's called Rachel's Cooking Playlist on Spotify. I bet he can find it.
I mean, this is like a world class, like people know about this cooking playlist.
Gotta talk about it.
But I actually really love just the idea of, looking into lyrics and then talking about every day. Because, even as we were talking about it in preparation for today, I was actually thinking about somebody I went to grad school with who really looked into the impact of music. So I'm really excited about this conversation because this particular song and the lyrics mean so much, but it is a different way to kick off the podcast and to really use a song lyric to create a conversation for the next hour. So I'm excited about that. But tell me what prompted this idea, or tell everyone what prompted this idea.
Yeah. Well, I was in yoga class, and yoga oftentimes, like, lots of music. It says the studio I go to, they don't kind of stick with probably like the long tradition of yoga in terms, like, I'm guessing probably in like real yoga, they don't even listen to music, I bet. But, for us, it's like, there's so much more pop music that comes through. And then during Shavasana, which, is the final resting pose where you're just like laying on your back, they sometimes play just something really beautiful and somber and kind of reflective. They've been playing that one lately that is from the Barbie movie. It's like, what is that artist? Like the real popular artist. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
I should have thought about that before.
There's multiple options on
like her and her brother, and his name is Phineas, and I'm blanking on her name. Billie Eilish. She has a really beautiful song that's like very slow and beautiful. They've been playing that as well, which is a real What Was I Made For, or something like that. That's another really beautiful song. But they've been doing that, but they've been also playing this anthem Leonard Cohen song. And I was just like laying there listening to that phrase, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And I was just like kind of thinking about, do I agree with that? Do I agree that there is a crack in everything? Do I agree that like the light, there's always light that comes in through that crack, right? Is like everything broken? Maybe is the first question. And then does like learning and growth always come from suffering? Because I can think of a lot of examples where like that's like not necessarily the case, or hasn't been the case for me, of like, like a silver lining, and I think that oftentimes quotes can tend to like oversimplify like hard things. It's like something that we use to feel better, and I certainly use them and love them. It's like something to reflect on, but then at the same time, I kind of tend to go down this other path sometimes of like being like thinking about the exception to those things. So I'd love to kind of explore a few things today. This idea that learning and growth comes from suffering, the idea that maybe that isn't always the case. Sure. And then navigating the tension between those two things, like either in our own lives or in, our work with clients. So I guess I'll start off with a hard question to you, which is, do you agree with the idea that learning and growth come from painful experiences?
Yeah. So first I'll say, this was also a wisdom moment, because for you to be in Shavasana, which I usually go to sleep, and to be like listening closely to the meaning of the song, I think is, and then like the conversation will show, that you were really thinking about something that I think is meaningful for all of us as human beings in terms of the human experience, especially as it pertains to imperfections and, this us trying to make sure that we rebrand wellness to mean that includes imperfections and failure and cracks, right? Yeah. But then also this like larger question of, is there growth that can come from pain? So there we are, starting with your wisdom.
Wait, I'm going to keep track of how many I do. I'm just going to keep me a little tally. I'll tell you at the end.
Okay, perfect. So this was a tricky question. I feel like all the questions that we kind of get into today are ones that are hard. And I think that like, it's very subjective. But to me, I do think that there can be learning and growth that comes from painful experiences, but that it's not always the case. And I'll talk more about, when it's not always the case, but I what I actually think is that learning and growth are embedded in healing. So
Mm,
if healing is the process of like a painful experience. If you're doing the work, whatever that work is, I mean, it doesn't always have to be therapy, but it can be therapy to heal from a painful experience, then healing, the actual meaning of healing is, to learn and grow from painful experiences. But one of the hard parts about healing, which we'll probably talk about in another episode, is that healing often hurts almost as much or more than the actual painful experience. So learning and growing, even if that is a byproduct of some painful experience, it's going to hurt. So it doesn't feel like learning and growing, actually. And it also doesn't feel like light. Maybe through the healing process at some point you can expect light, but I actually think that pain is pain. Talk about more of that in a second, but also that learning and growth, doesn't always feel like the light that comes through.
I'm going to give you a point for that. Like, I'm going to keep up for both of us because when I
we're tallying together. Okay.
we're tallying together. When I saw that on your notes, I was like, oh, we can end the podcast after that because that is like so good, like I agree with that. And I think that if I can think about other hardships, or hardships in people's lives that are close to me that they haven't walked through that healing process, or that I haven't walked through a healing process, like I haven't seen the light yet. I actually think this honestly about my own spiritual journey. My therapist keeps trying to get me to like kind of unpack my spiritual journey because she can tell that there is some I think religious trauma there, and I'm like, nope, not going to, and I'm like,
great clients. Therapists
well,
are such great clients.
we really are. Yeah, I'm like, I'm keeping a boundary between. You can have this trauma, this one, nope, not yet. But I think that it's one of those ones where like no light has come through that particular crack in my life because I have not been willing or ready to engage in. Okay, and I can point to that same point that you're making in other ones where I have embraced the healing, and that is where the light came through. And I think if I didn't embrace the healing, like it could just have forever stayed a crack, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me also more about like this inherent human need, because I think we both kind of like have mentioned that, and also I saw it in your notes, so I want you to say that.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. I think that I have this like inherent human need to make sense of suffering, like at least in my own life, I think even if I can think about it, even the over saturation of like news sources of telling about pain and hardships at the global level, it is hard for me to watch or listen to too much because it's like I don't have an answer for that. Like I cannot make sense of that. So when pain and painful experiences happen to me, I feel this like need to be like, find the learning, find the light, find the growth, like whatever that is. And a lot of times I like hopscotch over the pain part of it, of just like sitting in the pain, because I'm like, I'm like in my head, I'm like writing my memoir on it. I'm going to be like, and then Rachel experienced this, and this is how she overcame it and what she learned from it. Honestly, I think that's a lot of what Mondays with Motivo is. I think it's like, I hear something that is insightful or confusing or thought-provoking, and then I'm like, what does this mean? I don't like sitting with I don't know what this means. That's not fun for me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense though. About, first of all, I love that you are writing your memoir in your head. I love that. But I think that makes sense for the purpose even of memoirs, right? Or even like bearing witness to other people's pain, is that we from the outside can see, the light in, somebody else's painful experience, or even learn and grow from others' painful experiences. And I think even like when someone is writing about it, there's a healing process that they're going through, even in the writing. But then I imagine, and I could be wrong, but I imagine that even to be able to get to write it, like about painful experiences, you had to have had some sort of learning or growth, right?
Absolutely.
Especially, the books that are like, about people's pain that are so popular, or songs that are, about a person's pain, the writer's pain, and we're like experiencing it with them, but they're writing it from a place of healing, I assume. Who knows?
Yeah, I think there is that piece. I feel like definitely that through some of those experiences that I think what I'm looking for in it is make this situation make me better than I could have been without it. And that's the piece that I think isn't always the case. There's another part of the song that says, you can add up the parts, but you won't have the sum. And I like that reflection of just like, this doesn't add up. Like all of these elements, and I'm thinking about one of my friends who is battling cancer right now. I'm thinking of, a childhood friend that I had that I think I've mentioned on here before that died at the age of 18 in a horrible car accident. Those are ones in my head where I'm like, I can add up the parts. I don't have the sum. I get that cancer happens. I get that tragedy happens. I can't make sense of this from a perspective of like where the light is coming in, And actually I was reading a little bit about Leonard Cohen and his like, he didn't often explain his music in any way or like interpret it for people, but he did talk a little bit about this song and just saying that as he got older and older and older, he felt less pressure of making sense of things, And this song was a little bit of that piece of just like, this is an unanswerable question. And there's a quote that I absolutely love. It's probably one of my favorite quotes. And it says, it's by Rachel Naomi Remen. And she says, perhaps the secret of living well is not in having all the answers, but in pursuing unanswerable questions in good company. Don't you love that?
I mean, that's like therapy and relationships in general.
Yes. And also like, we say in like the opening, like what it means to be human. I went to a liberal arts college, so I took humanities, and all of humanities is about what does it mean to be human. And I think that to me, like it keeps evolving, that quote for me, to becoming more and more true. It's like more and more, I think what it means to be human is pursuing unanswerable questions in good company. It's like there's a lot about life that we cannot explain. Who are you going to walk alongside in life where you want to like have their you're one of my people for sure. That's basically the point of this podcast, is like, these are some unanswerable questions. You're good company,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. Like, we have a lot of unanswered questions. Like, if you go through our Marco Polos and you go through like conversations that we've had over the years of our friendship, like we have a lot of unanswered questions.
We really do.
Are just like, we're just kind of like navigating them together.
Yep. And not even just unanswered, like unanswerable. Like there is not an answer.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just gonna like stay unanswered. But that's like so hopeful. Look at us bringing just hope into the world. We're like, P.S. There is no point. Okay. Here's like an even harder question, which is kind of the second part of this. Do you think that the pain was a precursor to growth? Do you think pain is like maybe always a precursor to growth? Like, do you think that lessons are deeper or the growth is more profound if it's accompanied by pain?
Yeah, this was definitely another hard question. And I think what's hard about it is that there are often times where, as a therapist, as a human being, I struggle with, how positive, should I be? I mean, I think that toxic positivity is a thing that, I do try not to engage in. But I think also there's just, when we're talking about pain, and then like, it being something where we're saying like, yes, we're going to go through pain. That's a reality. And will you grow from it? Answer to that question is not always.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so to answer your question, I think that it can be deeper and more profound. You know, I can definitely think of times where I was forced to grow and get a deeper understanding of myself because of profound pain. And maybe that wouldn't have happened if the pain didn't exist. But like I said, I mean, healing is harder and more painful when pain is present.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if pain is a necessary precursor to growth in all ways. I was actually like going way too deep in my thoughts. So I'll share some of it. I was thinking about Malcolm Gladwell and like the idea of, you know, spending 10,000 hours to become an expert. And so I was kind of like transitioning this to, you know, would we need to spend 10,000 hours navigating pain in order to be experts at growth from pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Super rabbit hole. But you know,
I
that's
love
what
that though.
that is what I do. But like I don't necessarily think that, you know, 10,000 hours of growth through pain is what it takes to become an expert at growing. You know, it's not a precursor. Mm-hmm. I think that we can do 10,000 hours of something like meditation or, you know, self-reflection or insight building. Yoga is also something that helps us grow. You know, now, these are also things that also help us cope with pain. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the insight that we get is something that we use to grow and to become better, stronger, or more vulnerable, which also is, you know, the way to grow from pain. But I think getting to know yourself and like that journey is something that is a precursor to growth.
Yep.
And so if we're growing from pain, then yes, we do have to have some sort of like, you know, healing that involves self-awareness and time with ourselves and introspection that will then help us grow in this pain. So that was definitely a yes and no answer. But you know, we kind of get to do that.
It makes me think, right? Yeah, we're like, yes. Hope you didn't think you were going to get an answer because we don't know. Unanswerable questions, right? Yes, but when you were saying that about 10,000 hours, it made me think about Brene Brown and all the research that she has done on imperfection or vulnerability or different things like that. And I mean, I think that has been her approach oftentimes, is to go deep into one thing. And I think that, you know, what I would say about that is that like there's like pain can often be a like an impetus, I guess, you know, like if the pain didn't happen, you might not, well, I'll speak for myself. If the pain didn't happen, I might not have explored that area. So is it like necessary? Maybe not, but like, is it easy to ignore? I think of pain maybe in the same sense of like the physical body, you know, like pain in our physical body is an indication that there's something not right, you know, and it is the thing that takes us to the doctor to be like, what's going on here, right? And so I think that pain for us can also be there's more under the surface here, and you know, like looking under this could be good.
There are also times we don't go to the doctor and we never find out why we have the pain, and then we just like think that we can go to sleep, and that's what Sean was saying earlier. So
and honestly, that's what gave me the idea for that. I was like, well, we were just talking about that, and I can honestly think of people who I'm like, you should really get this checked out, and I'm talking about their emotional pain, like not their. I'm fixing my makeup just all of a sudden, but I'm talking about their emotional pain rather than like I'm like, there's more here. You should look into that.
Right. I absolutely agree. So I do want to know about your experiences that you think were more transformative because of the pain associated, just like you just mentioned.
Definitely, right? I mean, I kind of saying yes and no in the sense that there have been, cracks in some things in my life, in family system relationships, in my marriage, things that have caused pain. And I think that oftentimes that pain has been a teacher. But I think that one of the things that I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, it's not necessarily that a crack happens in everything. It's that there already is a crack in everything. That was an interesting reframe for me. It's not like, oh, my marriage was great and perfect, and then this thing happened, and now there's a crack, and this is how the light gets in. It's like, and I think about this a lot. I've probably mentioned it on the podcast before. Anytime I go to a wedding of like a young couple that just looks like they're so excited, I'm in my head, I'm always like, buckle up. It's so hard. What's coming? Something's coming. It's not easy,
I say that. I actually say that to premarital couples. I'm like, the idea that your first year is like bliss is 100% the biggest lie of life.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Or that, I mean, for me, like, I don't remember the first year of marriage being hard, but I remember many other years being like super, super hard, and I think what I had to realize in therapy was like, this crack predated like the marriage. It's from, and Leonard Cohen talks about that a little bit too, that the song really is about the imperfection of life itself, the imperfection of every human relationship, that there was already a crack. And maybe you have the opportunity to have light come through that crack. But that's the part that I don't know that I agree with. Like, it's the second part of the lyric of this is how the light gets in that I'm a little unsure about, because that's the piece that I'm like, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah.
Unanswered question.
If there were to be light, it could come through a crack.
Yes. I love that. I'm going to give you a tally for that.
You also missed.
Okay, we're just waiting for Dr. Carla to get back. It's going to happen any moment. Hi. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes. I was just over here, calm as possible, cool as a cucumber. It's fine.
I was not calm at all, actually.
You're so funny.
Like clicking 17 things.
Yes.
Did you get that you have 2 wisdom tallies?
Oh, I was. Yes. No. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I did. You did say that, didn't you? About something that I said. Okay. I'm taking it. It was so meaningful that I already forgot what it was. I think it was that the crack the crack was already there.
The crack was already there. Yeah. Like that is so true. Like, even if you talk about like relationships, right? We're talking about 2 imperfect people. And so, I mean, obviously I don't just say to couples, like, you're doomed, but I say things like, you have to make sure that you are aware that you're not actually, in a perfect relationship. And even the goals as you navigate together are not perfection.
That's right.
Is this your person? Is this the person that you are going to, pursue unanswerable questions in good company? Right. Like I just, yeah.
I love that. So on the aspect of just pain as pain is, you mentioned earlier that like that sometimes pain just exists and there is no answer to it. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Do you think that there are you talked about the element of toxic positivity. That's what it was. I couldn't remember. About that idea that sometimes we say things that are like, invalidating of the person's experience of pain in an effort to get to the silver lining or the, learning that's in it. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about whether or not you agree that there is a higher purpose in pain, or sometimes pain is just pain?
Yeah, so I thought about this question really in the context of parenting, right? Like, I really want to, in an age appropriate way, prepare, Cameron for a world that is real. Like, there is a real world out there that, she's going to have to navigate. And so, in answering and thinking about this question, I, concluded that there is definitely just painful ass experiences, like, and that what we're socializing children or even ourselves to learn is that sometimes pain is just pain. And so we have to figure out how to navigate hurt and pain, because that is a real part of our experience. And by, trying to say, oh, you're going through pain, look for the light or look for the silver lining, it actually diverts attention from the actual true experience of pain. So I'm thinking about instances, of racism or bigotry. Those things are just painful as fuck. Like, those are things that, like, we just actually should not experience. These are parts of human experiences that should not exist.
That's right.
So I don't believe in these, types of experiences, that there's ever anything I personally need to learn from that, or even that I can learn from that. Pain comes from violence, domestic violence, other types of violence, suffering that comes from social issues like genocide and just like ignorance, that we have for people. And I think just, not only part of my personality, but also, like I said, my responsibility to, as a parent is, I'm a realist to a fault. So I often find myself just accepting or working to accept things as they are and trying to respond accordingly to what is versus what I wish it was.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always challenging myself not to have expectations. It's like the hardest thing ever to not have expectations of people or experiences, because I have to look at something for what it is. And also personally, I found that, with the pain of losing 3 pregnancies, I wished above all else that I could find the silver lining. Like, I was actually looking for the light in these experiences. Um, it came, but it didn't come until I had Cameron. And, I was able to think about the fact that I wouldn't have had her if I hadn't lost those 3. But even while I was going through the pain, there are things, because people aren't as well versed in helping others through pain and, like, just sitting
Right.
with pain. And they would say things like, oh, well, you can try again, or, you should try again. Are you going to try again? And just, like, completely pushing aside the actual pain, in my experience. Those were not transformative, and even with the silver lining, even with having Cameron, the losses were not transformative. There was no higher purpose in my experience. It was just loss. And I had to, with the help of my therapist, sit in that loss until the grief was different.
Yeah.
It hasn't even gone away. It just had to be different.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And I mean, I think you bring up so many larger societal issues where it is like, I think it's easier to think about this quote in a more personal experience of our own life and pain. When you zoom out and think about more societal problems, it's like, ugh, it is hard to see it there. And it's almost, to your point, offensive to try. It's offensive to even suggest it. And I really agree with what you say about the fact that so many people aren't well versed in sitting with the pain. And I think it's because people being in pain makes people uncomfortable. It's like I have a desire to quickly get you past this pain, even with knowing all I know about therapy and all of that. Even when my friends tell me something, I'm often like, well, we got to fix this for her. I gotta say something that's going to make this a little bit easier for her, and it's like, no, you don't, because if I just think about myself and what I want in those moments, it's just like, this is so hard. That sounds so painful.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And I think that like, that's the lesson, for all of us. If we learn how to sit in our pain, we can actually do that for other people as well. So I do want to know what you think. You were actually talking about, the higher purpose, or, searching for the higher purpose. And so I'm wondering, do you think that there is one, a higher purpose, or that we can find something that we can't see that is associated with pain?
I think I used to. I think being raised in a faith tradition, I think that's one of the parts that I haven't made peace with, and actually probably the piece that honestly took me from being a Christian to really seriously doubting my faith, was this piece of that if God is in control of everything, like God allowing things to happen was a very hard thing, still is a very hard thing for me to wrap my head around, and I think that, Richard Rohr, who's a theologian that I have a lot of respect for, he says, life is inherently tragic. I agree with that. Life is inherently tragic. And that is a truth that only faith, not logic, can accept. And I have a really hard time with that second part. Again, I'm like, cracking everything. Life is inherently tragic. Those things I get, but the ability to just accept that there must be a higher meaning or purpose here that I don't see. It's I don't know, it's a hard one for me. It's a very hard one, and I can't get there yet. And I feel like that mostly in my faith, I have gotten to a place of just being comfortable with not knowing, just being like, I would rather have a little, like, kind of more comfort around, like, why these things happen,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
more of an ability to just be like, well, that's faith, you can, and I don't mean to say that to speak light of like faith. I wish I could do that a little bit more. And for some reason, I just feel like I can't get there.
Yeah, I think that's what makes, faith something that helps us cope, right? It's there's like coping versus understanding, and they're two separate things. And I think that for some people they're two separate parts of the growth and healing process. Sometimes for some people healing comes through understanding, and sometimes for some people, healing comes through coping. And then for some it's like both, it's somewhere in the middle. So, I definitely think that this is why we, think about, faith and social supports and things like that. Like as therapists and care providers, we think of this as like a network of support and coping through difficult things. We're
Yeah.
always assessing to see, what's the faith tradition or what are the belief systems that a client has, because these are the things that we can pull on, for coping through that healing process that's so hard.
Yes. Yes. To kind of get even deeper into this like theology place that I wasn't like necessarily planning on going, but like I remember this very transformative experience I had a couple of years ago. I was on a run listening to Dax Shepard, Armchair Expert, one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to that a lot. And him and Monica, his co-host, were asking each other, if you were to die and you see God, God is real and you see God, what is the one thing that you would want him to say to you, him or her, or it, whatever it is? what is the one thing you want them to say? And
Mhm.
I immediately in my head thought, I was with you the whole time is like what I
Mhm.
wanted this higher power to
Yeah,
say to me.
yeah,
And I like felt it all over me. I was
yeah.
like, that is like a deep guttural need that I have or like want. I want it to be real. Like I want it to there to be meaning
Sure.
in all of this stuff, you know? And I think the piece of it that that keeps me from like believing it and like resisting it is this piece of human suffering, like what we're talking about today. Because what I can't handle is like the comments of like, you know, that this was a miracle or God
Mhm.
intervened here and helped this person because I could just name so many other instances. I'm like, if God is a part of making all of those things right, then that means that God, in my like brain, is a part of choosing not to make all of these things right.
Mm.
Do you see why I need some therapy around this stuff? Because I can't make sense of it in my mind. And so I've kind of just gotten to the place of like, I don't, it's an unanswerable question for me.
I do see it, and I believe that if your therapist is listening, they will be like, "We definitely need to talk about this."
I know he keeps
So, are
telling
you
me,
ready?
no, I am not. I'm like, so had a hard day at work. Let's talk about that. Doesn't seem to matter that much, Rachel. I don't know. Feels like something deeper here.
Oh my gosh. Well, if they want to sign, if they want, or if you sign a release of information, I can let them know that
Will
you're
you
ready.
please? Yeah,
Ish.
I
You're
mean,
ready.
I'm ready-ish. Yes. Just listen to the podcast and send me a bill, Eric. What do I need to know? Okay,
Right.
well let's talk about you're a great therapist. You're such a good therapist. I would love to know when this issue comes up for your clients, like how do you help them navigate this tension? Because this I firmly believe everything that we talk on this podcast is not unique to us.
Mm.
I'm like, I think that these are topics that everybody thinks about and wrestles with. So is that true? Do clients come into your office navigating this? And how do you help them?
Absolutely. I mean, that's mostly what people come in for, whether they know it consciously or not, that there is pain. And that they are at least looking for light in their life. Maybe they're not knowingly saying, where's the light in the crack of this pain or this situation, but they are in need of some sort of relief. So the way that I know to provide relief, the only thing I know to do is to sit with them in it.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is a really controversial thing, among therapists and the therapy community, but I'm going to say it anyway. There are plenty of times where I've cried with my clients. First of all, learn this as a child, that watching Oprah, that whenever somebody cries, I am going to cry. And I would
Mm-hmm.
always be like, that is, that's such a, not a good thing to have, because it's not always great to cry in every situation that somebody else is crying. But what I think that means, and I'm actually uncovering it today, right now, sitting here, is that there is a connection of human pain or emotion, right? And so if someone is in pain in my presence and I'm witnessing it, there's nothing that comes to my mind to even say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm another human being, and there is so much pain that people experience in this world that is bigger than us.
Yeah.
It's bigger than me, and I can't hold the responsibility of identifying the perfect thing to say or to ask when someone is simply needing a person to walk alongside them, sit alongside them, and bear witness to their pain, believing how painful an experience is or was, believing that they need and they like, believing they're suffering, but also believing that they are worthy of relief, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not only do words often, fail us in bearing witness to others' pain, I think as a therapist, I've also been present when people have just remembered, they've had a repressed memory and they've remembered something so painful that their brain actually forgot about it
Mm,
because of how painful it was. And in a moment, they've remembered it. I've sat with, couples as they decided in a moment to separate or to divorce. These are things that are absolutely gut wrenching.
mhm,
And
mhm.
there are no words to say, right? To really, like, I don't know, give some sort of like respect or reverence to the amount of pain that, these people are experiencing. So I don't know that just telling someone that they need to give space to their pain is enough.
Mhm.
I've definitely talked about that to people that, I'm working with, but it's so hard to, make that make sense.
Mhm.
Like, just give space to your pain like that. Yeah, that's one way to do it. The other way is to just sit and show them.
Yep.
And that them not being alone is the thing that touches them, I think, the most.
Yes. Oh, so powerful, Hallie. But
Okay.
I agree with that. I mean, I think one of the points here that I think could be important to make is that there are different types of clinicians, and I've been reading online sometimes about like just people who've had a negative experience of therapy and often because of the therapist, right? And
Oh
I
yeah.
think that it is maybe important to think about like what would make, like, for me, you're the kind of clinician that would resonate with me. I would want you, because I think the controversy around it is that you don't want your client to have to take care of you,
Sure.
but like you wouldn't be sobbing like
Sure.
and needing
Right.
comfort.
Yeah.
You would be mirroring that
Sure.
this is like a pain that there isn't really any. And I think what I
Yeah.
love about what you said is that it's almost even offensive to try to make sense of somebody's pain in a
Sure.
moment like that. I would find it offensive. I would be like, not the time. I can actually remember one time that my different therapist, when we were in couples counseling, like the moment was so intense and the grief was so present that she was like, let's walk, like let's leave the therapy office. And we did, and we took several circles around the therapist's office
Oh,
to just
yeah.
kind of like regroup. And for me, what it was saying was like it's getting into what that means to create
Mhm.
that safe space and to feel that space for the pain. It's like, feel it right now, you're safe to do so. It's
Mhm.
part of the healing process to do so, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
um, I love that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there are not only different therapists. I think that, there are different personalities. There are various ways. I'm an emotion-based therapist. So,
Mhm.
that is a very, clear sign that we need to lean into and dig into emotion. But there are so many different ways. Have you helped clients process pain in the past? I mean, I'm sure.
I've definitely been a client whose therapist has helped process pain. So I gave a few examples of that, but I would say it's a bit
Yeah.
of a hard one for me because a lot of my experience as a clinician, I haven't practiced in a number of years, but was with children. And I think that this is even a bigger, harder one with kids. Where it's
Yeah.
like it's very hard to obviously make sense of anything that's an experience of pain. I think there's more of an opportunity to sit with them in their pain. Like, I think that maybe sometimes kids are a little bit more willing to just like express their pain in different ways. So there's a lot of like play and art and
Mhm.
moments that they didn't know that they were processing their pain,
Sure.
but that was what was happening.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love how you worded that. They're more willing to process their pain in different ways. Like that actually, gives the context of a strength that for children, and many of them who have the, space, whether it be in therapy or with their loved ones, to actually tap into pain in different ways, and that somewhere somehow we lose that. We lose the ability to process pain in different ways. And I think that there's sometimes that expectation that then, as adults, we tend to put on little ones, instead of learning from them that we can access pain in different ways and process it in different ways.
Yeah, and I think I like that. And I think the other piece of that too is that there is that you also have an opportunity to make your pain very subjective of your experience of it, because the one thing that most children, if they're lucky enough, have, is the ability to not be thinking about world famine or homelessness as they're
Right.
navigating. And we as adults are, and I've already mentioned, those are the harder ones for me to reconcile. I can get to like the
Mhm.
place of like my own pain and grief and experiencing
Sure.
that. So I think kids also have that strength of being able to, there's that phrase of like, maybe like an immigrant child who, like, is a refugee to another country where they're safer than they were, in their country of origin. Like people might say, like their childhood was taken from them, and I think that means like their innocence. They had to see the harsh reality of the world
Sure.
far earlier than they should have. So
Yeah.
I think there is more of an opportunity there as clinicians to just keep the pain subjective, your experience. It's still real and it's still like
Mhm.
just as hard, but it's not also as, it doesn't have all these other additional elements of world and societal pain, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that also as an additional way to say, like, maybe there's not always light in the crack, but there's also not always an opportunity to widen the crack. Like the crack is
Mhm.
just the crack,
That's right.
like
Yep.
we don't always have to just be like, yes, here is the pain, and here is a way that it's actually worse,
Yep.
because I've experienced that, or I've seen somebody else go through it. Like, just being present with um imperfections, pain, whatever we want to use in this context, is really the lesson here. Just be present with
And
what.
to get into like the parenting side of things too, or the how adults can respond to children, be it therapists working with children or parents working with their children, or your loved one, little ones in your life, there is a need to be very present with that child's experience of pain rather than discounting it because they don't understand how many other hard things you're dealing with, right? I think about my
Yeah.
dad, I love him, but like what he had all these like interesting phrases he would say. He was a very funny guy, liked to joke a lot. And I remember when my brother would say something that he like wanted and couldn't have, like I want a cookie, dad, or something like that. My dad would say this phrase that said, people in jail want out. And that was just like his response was like, sucks for you. There's other people who want things. And my brother was like,
Right.
honestly, it impacted him. He was like,
Sure.
why are people in jail? Why won't people let them out? Like it
Sure.
introduced
Sure.
this whole other issue that's like,
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck if you want a cookie. People in jail want out of jail. And he's like,
Yeah, your
I
brother's like, and I want a cookie.
back to the cookie. I'm hungry, you know? So I
Yeah.
think there is a purpose in just like seeing the kids playing for what it is and
Mm,
being there.
yeah. Yeah. Such a good way of, like, kind of coming full circle and being able to say, like, just as we started, that there is there is strength, there is power in being able to say pain is pain, growth is growth, healing is healing. They don't all have to coexist.
Mhm.
Um, and that by, I don't know, giving the gift of just being with, ourselves and somebody else in their pain, that we can also just, like, stop the expectations that we should be getting through or getting over or finding the strength in something that's really hard right
That's
now.
right.
Maybe
Yep.
that'll happen, but it's hard right now.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. I think so. God, we covered so much good stuff this
we
week.
did.
We talked
We
about religious trauma. We talked about children. I mean,
we really did dig
we have the
deep.
same number of tally points. P.S. It's 2 and 2.
Yes. pretty sure you have like 4, so I think you took some off, but I
Oh,
did.
yeah, that's super for me. Okay, I definitely did. I added 3 more.
See, you like winning, and
I
there
like
you are.
winning. Yes. All right, so, let's
Next
see, next
episode.
week.
Yeah, what are we gonna talk about?
Okay. I haven't even run this by you yet. Did you look at it? What do you
I
think?
did.
Is this
I like
something
it.
you approved? Okay, good. Okay, one of my favorite topics. I love talking about aging. I love talking about getting older. I like talking about how society views getting older. I like talking about how I feel about the experience of getting older. Like, spoiler alert, have a very positive view of getting older. I like getting older, and I feel like that there is more exciting things ahead of me, and that I get better and better and better able to deal with them as I get older. So I have a very positive outlook on aging, and I want to know what you think of it, and I want to just dig into it. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think it's perfect. I can't wait. It's also really timely because I just turned 40 last week.
Great.
Quick story. I went to get a massage. The massage therapist was like, "Oh, why are you here?" I said, "It's because of my birthday." And she goes, "Oh, how old are you turning?" And I said, 40. She goes, like, her face was like, "You don't look that old." And I was just like, really? Like, I don't even know what to say here. So we have a lot to
It is, right? It's like a compliment, and like, why is it a compliment?
It's like a backhanded
I
compliment.
get that you think that, yes, but like, right.
I'm
What is
happily
40? What is that? What does 40 look like?
Yeah, exactly. I did ask her that, and she kind of like didn't answer me, but we'll get into it.
All right, we have a therapist on the table here. She wants to unpack it.
So I do want to mention that we are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please go watch, and if you love it or not, no matter what, leave us a review. And the video is on YouTube. And I also want to mention that we do go live on LinkedIn, and you can also follow Rachel or myself or Motivo Health to register for the weekly live events. So come join us. We love having people watch us.
Yeah, love that. Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Great conversation.
Yeah, great conversation. Okay, see you next week.
Okay, bye.